Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, July 19th West Fargo City Commission meeting. I'd ask that you all silence your cell phones, with the exception of any of our firefighters, our EMTs, and our police department. But we'd ask everybody else to please silence their phones. First order of business is the call to order, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next order of business is the approval of the agenda. We have one change that's going to take place. The presenter and the person, our Economic Development Director, Lauren Orchard, there's been a clerical error. Item number 5 in the regular agenda goes up to the consent agenda to item K. Item K will be the approval of a resolution adopting the commercial remodeling exemption policy. This policy has been discussed in public a number of times, and so we don't feel that there's a need to put you all through that again. So item number 5 will move to K on the consent agenda. Commissioners, do you have any other additional changes? My apologies, I should have started the meeting. Commissioner George is with us on the internet. She's traveling on business, but Mandy is with us this evening, so she will be voting on all the items.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just make also a reference to the address being incorrect for the VFW.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Jurdevig. You are correct. On item G, games of chance, the West Fargo VFW's address is incorrect, and we'd like that changed, please.
That has been already.
Okay, on the electronic one, okay. Yep. For those following around on a paper agenda, it has not, so that will be changed. So again, Commissioners, we have changed item number 5 to K on the consent agenda. I need approval of the order of the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jurdevig, thank you for the motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson, seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda with the amendment of item number 5 going to K on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Next order of business is to approve the minutes of June 21st. Commissioners, they have been distributed. They have been distributed to the public.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2021. Again, they have been distributed to the public and to the commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is building permits. The building permits have been distributed, and this is the report for June as up to June 23rd. That is an actionable item.
I'll move to approve the.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Has been moved to approve the building permits of the report of June 23rd. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Is been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item F, building permits as of July 7th. That report has been distributed as well. Are there any questions of planning and zoning?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permit report as distributed up to July 7th. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. There are items A through K. Again, a reminder that item 5 of the regular agenda has been moved up to K in the consent agenda. So we have a consent agenda A through K. It has been distributed to the public and to the commissioners.
I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdebig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Have been moved and seconded to approve the amended consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda is the conditional use permit for above-ground fuel tanks in a light industrial district at 44 29th Court Northwest. Megan, Planning Director for the City of West Fargo, will present. Good evening, Megan.
Good afternoon, Commission President and Commissioners. If you give me just a minute, I'm going to scroll down to this item. All right, I'm getting closer. All right, thank you for being patient. This application is for a conditional use permit located at 440 29th Court Northwest, which is Lot 10, Block 1 of Sand Hills, 3rd Edition, in the city of West Fargo, North Dakota. Purpose of this application is to allow for an above-ground bulk fuel tank for fueling vehicles and equipment for business. The applicant is requesting an 18,000-gallon propane and a 20,000-gallon diesel tank for fueling vehicles and equipment, and has provided a site plan which illustrates the proposed location of the tank to be 75 feet from the south and 82.5 feet from the east property lines. Above-ground Class 1 propane and Class 2 diesel liquid storage tanks larger than 5,000 gallons are provided for as a conditionally permitted use in the LI, light industrial zoning, subject to the following. A minimum distance of 75 feet is maintained from property lines, as well as placement and screening to ensure both aesthetic and public safety purposes, and that the use is reviewed and approved by the fire department for quantities and separation of other lots of record and buildings. A conditional use permit agreement is required to be signed prior to issuance of a building permit and may include conditions deemed appropriate by the commission. The West Fargo Fire Department has no noted concerns on this application. Included in the packet is the criteria for granting a conditional use permit with no noted concerns. Property owners were notified within 350 feet and applicable agencies and departments, and no comments were received. The application may be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan and the intent of the LI Light Industrial District with an approved conditional use permit. And with regards to planning issues and above-ground storage tanks, staff does not have any concern. However, the applicant must comply with all requirements set forth in the International Fire Code, which will be enforced by the West Fargo Fire Department. It is recommended that the city approve the proposed application on the basis that it is consistent with city plans and ordinances with recommended conditions as follows. 1, the West Fargo Fire Department inspects and approves the finished project prior to filling and operating tanks, and that a signed conditional use permit is received. At their July 13th, 2021 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit with staff recommendations noted. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions, commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner Olson.
Could you just identify exactly on the map where it will be located, please?
Yep, the location is about in this area here, and I will scroll down so you can see right here.
Basically, just wanted that for the public to know where it's going to be placed at on the property.
Sure.
Additional questions? Ms. Elshog?
If not, I'll make a motion to approve with the 2 recommendations.
I have one question. In the deliberations of planning and zoning and/or your department, any concerns about the the amount of gallons. I mean, we have a conditional use permit is anything over 5,000. Obviously, that's kind of been the tolerable limit is 5,000. This is considerably bigger. Any dialogue about that? Any concerns at all?
We have no noted concern. We haven't heard any concern, and we have no concern noted from the fire department, who has had a chance to review this as well.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for above-ground fuel tanks in Light Industrial District at 440 29th Court Northwest. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 2 is a conditional use permit for above-ground fuel tanks in Heavy Industrial District at 837th Street Northeast. Again, Ms. Alshog.
Thank you. The purpose of this application is to allow for an above-ground fuel tank for fueling vehicles and equipment for a business. This is located in the M Heavy Industrial Zoning District. The applicant is requesting a 12,000-gallon above-ground diesel tank for fueling vehicles and equipment. Above-ground Class 1 gasoline and Class 2 diesel liquid storage tanks are provided for as a conditional permitted use in the heavy industrial zoning districts without added conditions, as are similar and more restrictive zoning districts. Due to the nature of the surrounding developments, it's recommended to provide conditions as may be recommended from the West Fargo Fire Department, which they have noted no concern. A conditional use permit agreement is required to be signed prior to issuance of a building permit and may include condition deemed appropriate by the commission. In your staff report is criteria listed for a conditional use permit with no noted concern. Property owners within 350 feet and applicable agencies and departments were notified of the application. Included in your packet is a letter of support that was received on July 13th. The application may be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan and the intent of the M Heavy Industrial Zoning District. With regards to planning issues with above-ground storage tanks, staff does not have concern. However, the applicant must comply with all requirements set forth in the International Fire Code, which will be enforced by the West Fargo Fire Department. Similarly, the West Fargo Fire Department has no noted concern on this application. It's recommended that the city approve the proposed application on the basis that is consistent with city plans and ordinances, and recommended conditions for approval are as follows. 1, the West Fargo Fire Department inspects and approves the finished project prior to filling and operating fuel tanks, and that 2, a signed conditional use permit agreement is received. At the July 13th, 2021 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the staff recommendations noted above. And on your screen is an aerial image of the site. And the location is right here, so just a little bit west of the structure on the site. It's location of the proposed fuel tank. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Alshog. Commissioners, questions?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second?
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for above-ground fuel tanks in the Heavy Industrial District at 837th Street Northeast, with the conditions as outlined by Planning Director Megan Alshog and the Fire Department's requirements for inspection. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 3 is the plat and conditional use permit to allow for a single-family dwelling in an agriculturally zoned district. Malachi Peterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair and Commissioners. The applicant is proposing to build a non-farm, single-family dwelling in an agriculturally zoned district located in the city's extraterritorial zone. City ordinances allow non-farm, single-family dwellings in the agricultural district with approval of a conditional use permit and deed restriction. The property is about 9.5 acres in size, and the surrounding 30 acres of land will be deed restricted to prevent further development. Since this is a new subdivision, West Fargo City ordinances dictate that there should be a public land dedication or fee in lieu of required. Due to the fact that the subdivision is being proposed for one residence, staff would recommend that the above requirements be waived should the application be approved tonight. The property is defined as being in the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Special Flood Hazard Area A. However, a conditional letter of map revision has been released, which appears to indicate that the majority of the area will be removed from SFHA Zone A and placed within Flood Zone X once the Fargo Moorhead flood diversion is constructed. Areas within Flood Zone X are considered to be at minimal risk and outside of 1% and 0.2% annual chance floodplains. Notices were sent to property owners within 350 feet, Raymond Township officials, Cass County Planning, and the Cass County Sanitarian. The Cass County Sanitarian has indicated that any person that will require on-site septic must have at least 1 acre of total area, be located outside of the floodway, and have ample setbacks from wells and open bodies of water to place the system. Once the property is ready to begin the process of septic system application, a soil analysis must be completed. That includes composition and depth to the limiting area. All work must be permitted, inspected, and approved by the Fargo Cass Public Health. West Fargo's comprehensive plan indicates that this area is located within the suburban restricted growth sector. This sector includes areas between the current and proposed diversion that may have new development potential should the Fargo Moorhead flood diversion be built. This sector indicates significant tracts of land that are currently rural, but where directed and well-planned new development could occur around identified potential future mixed-use and employment centers. In order to prevent undue burden to county services, access at time of flooding is necessary, and staff made the recommendation that the applicant should provide sufficient evidence prior to final consideration by the City Commission that access to the property is available at a 1% chance flooding event in the area. At their June 8th, 2021 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed at length the application, noting concerns that the applicants and/or emergency services might not be able to reach the property in the event of a 100-year or 1% flood event. Information provided by the county planner at that time led staff to believe that there would be adequate access to the property. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the subdivision and conditional use permit with staff recommendations listed in the staff report. Due to the amount of discussion on access, however, city staff engaged with further conversations with the Cass County engineer, who has provided maps and information indicating there might not be access in the event of a 100-year or 1% flood event, which in turn makes it difficult for the applicant to meet that particular staff recommendation. This information was given to you earlier today, and I also provided it as a handout as well. It is recommended that if the City Commission vote to approve the proposed application, that it be approved with the following conditions. 1, a signed deed restriction as approved by the city attorney, city planner, and city commission is received. 2, a signed conditional use permit agreement is received. 3, a drainage plan is received and approved by the city engineer. 4, an attorney title opinion to the city of West Fargo is received. 5, a signed final plat is received with any necessary easements. 6, a certificate is received showing taxes are current. 7, a subdivision agreement waiving the park dedication or fee in lieu of is received. And 8, an encroachment agreement is received. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, and the applicants are also in the audience tonight and may wish to speak to you about their agenda item.
Are there any questions for Mr. Peterson?
I have one, Mayor.
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
And this is probably more for John. John, I'm a little concerned. I know we've done stuff up north where we've granted permission, we probably shouldn't have, and it's costed the city money. Is there a way we can add like an item 10, just to say something, an addendum to it that says that they're aware that the city's not going to be responsible for what happens down the road? Because I know we've run into trouble with this.
Yeah, and we could add that to the conditional use permit. It has language regarding that the approval of the condition, I believe our current form has language that says the approval of the condition doesn't obligate the city to any liability that would arise from it, and doesn't guarantee that they'll complete their project, but we can certainly tweak that language a little bit more as it relates to access during flooding. I think that's a good idea.
I would like to see a little bit more in there just because of what we've already gone through and know we're going to continue to go through. So just to better make ourselves a little safer. Thank you.
Good suggestion. Anyone else, commissioners, questions? Mr. Peterson?
I would make the motion to approve that then with that added information, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Has a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the plat and conditional use permit to allow for a single-family dwelling in an agriculturally zoned district as outlined by Mr. Peterson, with the conditions and the addendum offered up by Commissioner Simmons. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Item number 4 is the Churches United for the Homeless presentation on the Dorothy Day, West Fargo.
I'm just going to do a very brief introduction here. We have from the Churches United, we have Pastor Sue Kesterman, who's the CEO, and Tim Hiller, who is the Director of Development. We have had a couple meetings here with staff with Churches United, and just wanted to note that staff is supportive of the work that we do, so they'll be presenting to you on the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry.
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, Pastor Sue. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Dardis, Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Jervading, Commissioner Olson, and Commissioner George, who I know is joining us via Zoom. So I'll just start by a brief capture of what Churches United does and its history, and then I'll just dive right in to the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry. So it's my privilege to serve as Chief Executive Officer at Churches United for the Homeless. We were established in 1987 by a group of 11 local faith communities who were responding at that time to what was hoped to be an initial and one-time uptick in homelessness in the community. I've been with the organization for about 5.5 years. When I joined the organization, we were one location. We provided shelter and a community center on First Avenue North in Moorhead. At that time, we were planning to build the Bright Sky Apartments, which provide 43 units of permanent supportive housing in near North Moorhead. That project was completed in March of 2018. In January of 2019, we were able to combine organizations to merge with the Dorothy Day House and Dorothy Day Food Pantries, and so that occurred in January of 2019. And we were just granted permission to build the Silver Linings Apartments, which will provide 36 units of permanent supportive housing for seniors 55 and older. So our mission in everything that we do is to provide safe shelter, stable housing, nutritious food, and a path towards healing for our neighbors in the community. And we are currently supported by more than 250 faith communities in the region, most of them in Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo area. So I'm here to speak with you tonight about the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry. So this is that nutritious food leg of our mission statement. And I don't know if I know how to advance the slide. Oh, I think I figured it out. There we are. I'm glad you'll be patient with me here because technology is not my first comfort zone. So a study by the Hunger Free North Dakota organization found that West Fargo is currently a food desert, and food deserts are places where people live without ready access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food. In West Fargo, families with an income below the federal poverty level comprise 9.2% of the population, and West Fargo families on supplemental nutrition programs comprise 17.4% of the population. The Dorothy Day West Food Pantry currently distributes out of Holy Cross Catholic Church in West Fargo. It began its life there as the Daily Bread Food Pantry in 1999, and we are extremely grateful to the congregation and the volunteers at Holy Cross Catholic Church for their hosting of the food pantry and their service to our neighbors throughout its history. In 2009, that pantry became the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry. At that time, demand for food pantry services had increased, and the good folks at Holy Cross wanted to be able to access food trucks and food rescue from the Great Plains Food Bank. In order to do that, they needed a sponsor who was a 501c3 corporation and who was already registered with the Great Plains Food Bank. And so in 2009, that became the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry and existed under the umbrella for administrative purposes of the Dorothy Day House of Hospitality and Food Pantries. For a long time, it was the only food pantry in West Fargo. I'm going to turn slides. So here is the food pantry map. And I have folders that Tim Hiller, who is our Chief Development Officer, will provide for you. I think the map is a little bit easier to read in the insert in the folder. So food pantries in the map that are in the dark green are food pantries that are open daily. That doesn't mean that you can go to them every day. It means they have distribution hours daily. The lighter green ones have a distribution date weekly. And then the kind of olive green are open one time a month. And the yellow dot is the current location of the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry in West Fargo. It is the largest food pantry in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and it is also the largest food pantry in North Dakota. It distributes more than 1 million pounds of fresh, perishable items every year. It's the only food pantry that distributes primarily perishable items. And it operates as what is called a food or a pop-up food pantry model. And what that means is that all of the food is received, sorted, and distributed on the same day at this location within an 8-hour period. And the Dorothy Day West Food Pantry currently allows shoppers, here it says guests, but shoppers, to visit as often as once every other week, so twice a month. That has been weekly, but we just shifted our distribution patterns so that a household can come to the Moorhead Pantry twice per month and to the West Fargo Pantry twice per month. We serve an average of 112 households in the 1 hour of distribution on Monday and the 1 hour of distribution on Wednesday. So it gets to be very, very busy, which is part of the reason that we are moving to a different location. In 2020, we distributed 1.1 million pounds of food to 1,637 unique households, and those households made 12,225 visits in calendar 2020. I'd like to add that that was with a significant interruption to service because of COVID. In 2019, we distributed 845,000 pounds of food out of that location to 1,216 unique households who made 10,815 visits. So you'll see there's been a significant increase in demand for food pantry support 2020 over 2019. We're seeing that trend continue as we move on into the latter half of 2021. 15 plus volunteers contribute an average of 5,000 hours per year to the operation of the Dorothy Day Food Pantry as it is located at Holy Cross Catholic Church. We just signed a lease for a new location. We're very excited about this. The location is at 45 21st Avenue. I'm bad at directions. In West Fargo, and you'll see the mock-up with the signage on that location. We're very excited about it because it provides a full-height warehouse and a loading dock in back, so we'll be able to store more food there. Currently, we can't store. It also has like a front area for reception and then the ability for shoppers to move through with a cart. So the location will be open on August 16th. And right away, we're going to expand so that we are distributing in 2 hours on Monday afternoon and 2 hours on Wednesday afternoon. It's just too much demand for a 1 hour period on each of those afternoons. It has loading dock and pallet accessible doors. And by the third week in October, we plan to be operating in this location as a full consumer choice model pantry. So what that means is that shoppers will be able to come in with a cart and choose the items that their household will use. At that point, we plan to mirror the hours of the Dorothy Day Food Pantry in Moorhead. So that pantry is currently open on Monday and Wednesday evenings. So the west location will be open Monday and Wednesday afternoons, and then Tuesday and Thursday evenings, so that our staff can support better. And then after a while, probably on Friday mornings as well, but for sure Monday through Thursday at the time that we open in October. So we are seeking from a variety of sources financial support. My purpose here tonight primarily is to give you information and respond to questions that you might have, although I would be disingenuous if I told you I wasn't seeking financial support, because I am. We also have equipment needs. Chief among them is a forklift. So we need a forklift to unload that much food and get it sorted and distributed. And currently, we plan to bring one of sort of the electronic lifts over from the Moorhead Pantry, but we really need a forklift in West Fargo. We also need to be able to add coolers and freezers to this location. And so in our budget, we are hoping for $25,000 from a variety of sources to support additional refrigeration. And then publicity, which is one of the other reasons I'm here with you tonight. Here's my contact information. I would love to answer questions. I'm sure you have some.
Commissioners, questions?
Mayor, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Commissioner George.
I'm wondering if your organization is looking for volunteers, and if so, how can the public get involved?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, when you are talking about asking for financial contributions, are you asking from the public, or are you asking the commission? And do you have any particular numbers you're looking for there?
So I'll answer the second question first. We will accept financial support from whatever source it will come. Individuals, congregations, donors, foundations, we have a number of grant applications out there. Where volunteers are concerned, we absolutely need volunteers. And our volunteer coordinator is named Hannah McMeekin. Our Chief Development Officer, Tim Hiller, is with us tonight. They will be happy to connect volunteers with the need. One of the things that we think makes us a really good fit for running this pantry on a consumer choice model long-term is that we have a large pool of volunteers that we have historically worked with as an organization, and we look forward to being able to engage more volunteers from our West Fargo faith communities and from the West Fargo community in general.
Additional
Thank you.
questions? Well, thank you for the work that you do. And obviously, when you're serving this many West Fargo residents, it's a better day in West Fargo. So we thank you very much for your commitment to continue to help serve those that are in need.
Thank you, and thank you for your kind attention, and don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Tim directly if you have anything further.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
The next order of business is project number 1316, Phase 2, Northside Sanitary Sewer Collector Rehabilitation. I don't see Mr. Scott in the building, but I see Mr. Wallace, Jerry Wallace, City of West Fargo Engineering Department.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and City Commissioners. If you can bear with me for a second here. Mr. Scott is unavailable tonight, so I'll be presenting this item. Okay, this is in regards to project number 1316, Phase 2, the Northside Sanitary Sewer Collector Rehabilitation. Moore Engineering conducted a virtual bid opening on June 17th, 2021. There were a total of 2 bidders, with KPH having the lowest base bid at $3,935,404. Along with the base bid, the city requested 4 bid alternates, which are summarized in our information this evening. Staff reviewed the bid results with the city's review committee on July 13th, 2021, who voted unanimously to recommend awarding the contract to KPH for their base bid, alternate 1 and alternate 2, totaling $4,675,049. This decision was based on a 50-year life cycle cost analysis, indicating this is the most cost-effective option for the long term. Detailed information is also included in the attached documents. The following documents are attached for review and consideration. The recommendation letter prepared by our consultant, Moore Engineering, the affidavit of publication, and the resolution accepting the bid. Staff's recommendation is to approve the resolution accepting bids and award contract to KPH in the amount of $4,675,049 for their base bid plus alternate 1 and alternate 2. I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Commissioners, there are questions? I sit on the review committee, and the discussions with regard to the 50-year cost analysis was good work by our financial people as well as our engineering team. This is an integral part to the services we have to provide our public, and it provides us with some. The rehabilitation must take place, and it's scary what the alternatives might be if there's a failure in this area of the city. With all the sewer that we have coming up from the south side goes through this, and the only alternatives, if we do have a major problem, is to run surface piping of all this sewer, and that is not acceptable to anybody in the city of West Fargo. So again, I think that the engineering department and our financial team, when they reviewed this, did an exceptional job on this, and this is an absolutely critical piece of our sewer infrastructure, and I'm very much supportive on this particular project. Any additional questions of Mr. Wallace?
Just a comment, sir.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
The project will be funded through bonds and/or capital improvement sales tax, so no special assessments are intended, right?
That's my understanding, Commissioner Olson. I would have to double check with, yes.
City Administrator Tina Fisk is confirming that with, that is how it will be paid, Commissioner.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovich seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve project number 1316, Phase 2, Northside Sanitary Sewer Collector Rehabilitation, as presented by Mr. Wallace this evening. And it is for the base bid of $4,675,049 and alternates 1 and 2, which are a total of $212,340 and $527,305. And moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is the overview of the 2022 budget. Mrs. Fisk, City Administrator, City of West Fargo.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I gave you a handout of, I'm not going to repeat all of what's written here verbatim, and this is just, our preliminary budget hearing is not actually until August 2nd. But I just wanted to kind of give you an overview and let the public hear kind of what we've been doing in-house to try and keep the budget in check and where we're at with it. Let me see. The approval of the preliminary budget, just so that everybody knows, once we approve it on August 2nd, if it's approved, that freezes any expenditures that are funded with property tax from going up. That means if, as we're working through the budget with you, if you decide to remove something, we can reduce expenditures, but we cannot increase expenditures. So we still have time between now and August 2nd and August 2nd and September to fine tune anything that you see as an issue. This particular budget includes a request for a 4 mil increase in the general and fire fund combined. And the public library also is requesting a 1.2 mil increase. For some factors that go into the budget for 2022, the value of 1 mil brings in approximately $190,000 from all property owners. That doesn't go very far when you look at today's prices. The mill levy total that we had for 2021 actually dropped from 77.98 to 77.47, and that's just due to the fact that we get an estimate from the county on what the value of a mill is, and if it comes in higher than that, then our mills will just decrease from what we thought we were going to do. The 2021 budget included a $1,350,000 transfer from the general fund reserves to balance the budget. The budget that we will give you has a $1 million transfer from the general fund reserves to balance the budget. It's taken a lot of hard work to get to that point, to get to that number, and I'll get into some of those details as we go forward. But the understanding is that it's going to take us a couple of years to work our way out of where we're at, but it's going in a positive way. Inflation currently is at 5%. However, only a 1% inflation increase to employees' salaries is included. Health insurance increase came in at 6%, which is amazing. It hasn't been that low in a long time. State aid and highway tax revenues are still lower than the pre-COVID amounts. We're hopeful that they will bounce back. General fund and fire expenditures have risen by $3,493,238, and that sounds terrible and it sounds huge, but there's a number of reasons that go into this, and there's a number of things we did to strategize to save funds, because you look at that number, it's pretty daunting when we only get $190,000 for 1 mil. So what happened is we budgeted employee hires in 2021, we staggered them, and that adds another $400,000 to the 2022 budget for those employees alone. $933,199 a $933,199 budget amendment was added to the fire department in 2021 due to the increased need for emergency fire and medical responses. For the public to understand, fire calls from 2017 to 2020 have increased by 300%. So it's a very, very busy area, and it is now a city department where before it was not, and so we've got a lot of growing pains going on trying to accomplish and keep all of our citizens safe. Police department expenditures show an increase of $634,291. This is due to personnel and equipment that is needed to service the number of calls. There's been a rise in calls. We're anticipating that with this year being quite high, from 2017 to 2021, there's been a 20% increase in call volume for the police department. Engineering department is now in-house and provides multiple services such as locating, overdimensional, and excavating, which is also an increased cost, but an increased service that we can reduce costs in other areas. Areas that used to be funded through utility fees, such as fleet and facilities, street and public works, are now appropriately housed in the general fund. This adds around $750,000 to the general fund, but also ensures that water, sewer, and sanitation can operate as self-sustaining funds for operation and maintenance in future projects. The amount of infrastructure that is built needs to be maintained and replaced, and it continues to increase each year. Just for perspective, there have been 45 additional subdivisions in West Fargo from 2018 to today. That does not include annexed areas or improved surfaces from gravel. 22.38 additional lane miles have been added to the city since 2017, bringing total lane miles to 381.80. With low interest rates, investment loss continues. We're causing about $1 million deficit for revenues in that area in the general fund. So what did we do, after I give you all the gloom and doom, to get us back to a reasonable amount that we can present to you? Initially, we had 14 staffing requests, which were submitted for the 2022 budget. These requests equaled an estimated $1,134,349. While each of these requests were submitted to service and address needs of the community, our staff made difficult decisions to delay some of the position hires and has been reduced to 6 staff at a cost of $500,241. As I said, we propose to keep the cost of living increase at 1%, even though it is lower than the 5% that is out there right now, and the metro area is looking at higher numbers. We feel that's just being fair to the public. Staff continue to evaluate for more professional fees, such as permitting, building inspection, engineering, to ensure they are appropriate for the cost of service, and adjustments will be added to the revenues to the general fund for 2022 for those adjustments. One-time capital and technology purchases were funded with other special revenue funds and provided a savings for the 2022 budget of $1,174,000. These efforts have resulted in a budget with a reasonable increase of 4 mills, and for perspective, to an owner of a home of $200,000 in value, which there's probably a lot of those, it represents a $45 increase for the entire year in property taxes. And if you're going to try and calculate for you, clearly that just means that for each $100,000 of value you have, it's $22.50 more. Let's see. Any other items that we have are the total mill levy estimates for 2022, as I said, are 74.04 for the general fund, city share specials, and airport and fire fund. As I said, this is an increase from 70.04 in 2021. Additional revenue this would create would be approximately $798,000 for the general fund, fire fund, and other items. The library fund is estimating an increase of 1.2 mills over 2021, bringing their total mills levy to 8.63. This would approximately give them another $228,000 to help fund their department. On the back page, I just have here, provided by Jim Larson, our finance director, it's our historic mills and dollars. So at this time, if you have any questions. One more thing I want to tell you is that this does not have all of your financials or the different budget sheets in it. Those will be printed out, bound, and in your mailbox tomorrow, as well as emailed to you. So then you have the opportunity to please review very carefully and bring back your questions to staff. We've met with you all at least once, but we would like to meet with you again if you want to go through and have more detail and have more discussions before we get to the preliminary budget hearing.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Is there any questions of Mrs. Fisk? Well, I'm certainly sure that there will be going forward, so
I would hope so.
thank you for the update.
Okay, thank you very much, and I want to thank our finance director, his department, and our assistant city administrator, and all of the department heads for their hard work on this budget. They've done a fantastic job, and they really did a good job for us this year, so thank you.
Item number 8, Mr. Wallace, do you have a report for the engineer's report, status of some projects?
Yes, thank you, Commission President Dardis and City Commissioners. I'll try to make my points brief. Most of the city's projects right now are in the closing phase of construction or, have finished, and we're going through finalizing a lot of our, contractual documents and whatnot. I probably would focus most of my discussion tonight on Cheyenne Street. We're currently well into phase 2 right now. There is mainline pavement present. We'll be working on putting curb and gutter and some of the asphalt returns back in. Phase 1 is largely complete, other than plantings and so on and so forth, that we will have to delay on planting guidelines to early August. And then I would also, like to highlight that Excel's project, the other highly visible project in town here, as of last week, they had about 12,000 feet of pipe installed, most of it in West Fargo. There is still going to be a couple more weeks of, highly visible construction activity and road closures and so on and so forth, but they're making very good progress, and we're hopeful that they'll be wrapped up in pretty short order. At this time, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Questions from Mr. Wallace? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is the City Administrator's Report. Mrs. Fisk, City Administrator.
Good evening again, Commission President and Commissioners. I don't have items, particularly myself, you've listened to me long enough, but I do have our Assistant Administrator, Tim Solberg's going to come up to discuss the residential remodeling policy and the Grand Farms project.
Good evening, Mr. Solberg.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commission. First off, the residential remodeling policy, just a quick update on that because we haven't talked to you about that for a short bit. Lauren's office, the Economic Development Department, has prepared some research and met with planning and the assessor's office to develop a policy. We're going to be looking at the whole thing comprehensively and presenting that to you at a later date. There's some coordination between departments on that, so we want to get you the right information on that, and that will come at a later date. Second item is the Grand Farm project. I do want to pull up my memo on this. We've been approached by the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC, as well as, help me out, Mayor, sorry, forget the, Emerging Prairie.
Emerging Prairie, yes.
Sorry. The Grand Farm project is looking for a permanent home, and they have put out a request for proposal. Their initial request for proposal was a little light, so they first asked for a letter of intent, and staff responded with a letter of intent that we would consider putting forth a proposal to house this. It's a little interesting. They need 160 acres of land, and not many places have 160 acres of land that they can quickly respond with. We do have the lagoon properties, so there is I'd say potential for us to be a respondent to this proposal. But before we do that, we want to make sure the commission understands what it is. We want to make sure that you're familiar with the proposal and would direct staff to do so. I think a couple of the items that I think from my perspective, I'd say 3 items that I want to make sure that you understand. One, this is a tremendous amount of staff time in a very short period. They did push back the response to July 30th, so we have to move pretty quickly on this. They do want to have a community meeting where they engage the leaders of the community, make sure that there's community support. So that's one, is that staff time. Second, of course, are we willing to give up 160 acres of lagoon land? What would we ask for a price in that? Would we ask a price at all? Those are questions that we need to consider. We, of course, don't need an answer tonight on that, but we would want to have some direction as to where we would head on that. I don't think the proposal needs that to be answered right now, we have some plans. West Fargo 2.0 has looked at industrial village for that. Public Works has looked at some different ideas for that area, but we don't have anything narrowed down. Grand Farm is agricultural in nature, but it does have some development associated with it. I look at it as a potential catalyst. However, it's a large amount of land to take up in our extraterritorial or in our city's limits. So, the third one, is this the right type of development for that area? Again, we've looked at that area primarily as industrial, and is this what we want to have for that area? So we're asking a lot of big questions in a very short amount of time, and so we want to make sure that we get that direction from the commission before we take any action. So tonight, I am looking for action. The action I would request is that you direct staff, it is in the memo, direct staff appropriately on whether or not we want to proceed on this request for proposal by preparing a proposal and getting that community meeting together, or if we want to politely decline the request for proposal.
Yes, I have a
Simmons.
question.
Commissioner Simmons. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Tim, I guess my concern is our 2.0 plan that's designated that is industrial, correct? I don't know why we'd want to sway from that to put a agricultural farm up there.
Yeah, we don't have, our previous land use plan, thank you, Commissioner Simmons, our previous land use plan would have identified these areas very specific to develop in a certain manner of use. Our current plan does not. However, we have that around the plan section that looks at a potential for the site as being industrial village. So it would be a departure from that. It wouldn't be a major departure from the plan that we would pivot to allow for something that could be a unique opportunity. So we could, but of course, that plan is adopted. Industrial village was, in my mind, certainly well thought out there, but it wouldn't be against ordinance, I guess, per se, if we went
But
this
we'd
direction.
be deviating
We'd be
from
deviating
our
from
plan,
what
which
our
took a
vision
lot of
was.
time and a lot of employee and staff and public input to do that. Okay.
Commissioner George?
I'm just wondering if you could maybe point out specifically what you would see would be it would do to benefit the community specifically of West Fargo.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Initially, a lot of us were a little skeptical of what this might do for the community. In my opinion, I felt it was worth bringing to the commission because of the potential for what this could bring to our agricultural community, our ag businesses. They have a potential to have some real exposure here. The benefit of bringing services to this site, such as sewer and water, and how this might get funded, those are big questions that we have to ask that aren't answered. So if there's some support to bring infrastructure out here, it might act as a catalyst for the area surrounding that. At this point, I'm not necessarily advocating, Commissioner George. I'm more curious, I'd say.
Thank you.
I recall during the discussions on West Fargo 2.0, at one time, one of the drawings and the depictions that the consultants had was the entire northwest section that you're referring to, Mark, that you refer to as heavy industrial, was also for a green space. And I can remember Commissioner Thorstead making a number of comments on that very specific thing with regard to that. So it isn't too far a stretch to consider some of this green space up in that neighborhood. So Commissioner Jurdovic.
So, I mean, I see the value in it. I guess the question I would have is around timing. I mean, if they're looking for 160 acres next year, we're not in a position to be able to accommodate that with the lagoon properties right now, are we?
Things are going pretty good, and Matt Anvik could certainly come up here and talk about that a little bit. They're moving pretty swiftly on some of those, but of course, I haven't spoken with him about this and timing. It's a really quick turnaround on response here. So this would engage us to actually start to work with Public Works to find out if it's even possible.
I mean, even if things are moving quickly on emptying the lagoons, I would still imagine there is some, I mean, at what point can that land be reused? Is there, there's questions there that I haven't heard an answer to that tell me that there's no way we would have 160 acres there available come next spring for this. But I mean, I would love to find a way to facilitate it. I see huge value in it, and what could come around it. But the timing doesn't seem to fit from my perspective.
Is that the only location that would be a consideration?
It's, Commissioner George, it's really the only property that we could actually respond with. There is nothing else that the city owns of that size, nor do we have relationships with any property owners outside city limits that we could quickly turn around and respond to this with.
to Commissioner Jurdovic's point, there's a potential growth in value of this, if there were to be some type of agreement or project for the city of West Fargo is amazing. The amount of autonomous vehicle research that these emerging prairie is starting to do, and the interest that they have from globally, all over the world. There's people flying in here every day with regard to farm equipment, trucks, and as a matter of fact, they're working on a project right now, the possibility of autonomous mowers for the banks of the diversion. So, and I've been involved in some of those discussions. So there's great potential of what emerging prairie might, this might be developed into. But obviously, we have to respect whether or not we can put together the type of proposal that we all from West Fargo would want, and to make it adequate and to make it on time and the like. So again, Mr. Solberg has indicated he's looking for an action item as to whether or not we have staff continue on this path to respond to the RFP, or are we going to step back? So commissioners, that's a decision you have to make, we have to make this evening.
Well, I will go back to the timing issue. I mean, if they truly need something to respond to for next spring, I don't know how I just don't believe we can respond. If there's flexibility in that date, if there's something, then potentially there is, but.
Additional questions of Mr. Solberg?
Well, I agree with Commissioner Jurdovik that if the land has to be acquired by them by a certain date, we have no hard and fast deadline when that could ever happen.
I think it said in there that they were looking for land for the 2022 growing season.
Growing season, yeah, so
Well, that would
build
never
land there.
Then it wouldn't be worth the time and effort by our staff to do that, because we don't, unless some landowner within our ET wants to offer it up, I don't see where we would have anything.
Yeah, the backfill of the lagoons is going to take place when the diversion channel is being dug. John, correct me if I'm wrong, 500,000 cubic feet of dirt? Yards, thank you. Thank you, John. Yards of dirt will be delivered to a site of our preference. We have to distribute it, but that's 500,000 cubic yards of dirt that through the efforts of Mr. Shockley and others in the room, thank you, Mr. Thorstad, that's going to be a great benefit when we got to fill in the lagoons.
I mean,
Mr. Anvik is at the podium. You have something else to add, Matt?
Yeah, I just as that kind of that timeline for the lagoons where we're going. Like Tim said, it's going actually pretty well right now. Cells 9, 10, and 8 are pretty much dry right now. So together, that's probably.
is there any chance you could show on a map which ones are 9, 10, and 8?
How many acres?
I don't have those memorized. So
Okay.
640.
they all look the same.
So this would be just a portion of it?
Yes, sir.
So we could, so
Well, I've been up to the lagoon decommissioning, and you're right, you're doing well up there.
Yeah, 10 is pretty much where that's drained and dug and drained. Or we have a lot of it actually, so it'll drain to a certain spot. And
So you dig a trench for further drainage, is that what that I see up there?
yeah, we trenched through the center and then just use the dirt that we've had out there to just go ahead and this is 10 right here. This is the one that we have completely drained, and the guys have already graded this to drain into this area right here. We got about maybe a foot of water left in 9. That will be discharged this week. Cell 8 here is completely dry, and we're just kind of waiting on a few other things before we start on that this year. This cell itself is about 70 acres. This one is about 80, I believe. So these two together,
150 acres.
about 150 or so. These 4 cells, we plan on working on these next year. So depending on where we would look at putting something like that together, these cells would probably be ready 23, 24. Because it's gonna be, at least a year of cover crop on there. It'll probably be a year of prep to get it done, planted, and then it's after that is before the nitrogen levels will be able to use, or, back to just regular dirt. So, soonest I would say probably 24 for these 4 cells here.
I mean, just at the risk of brainstorming for a second, if you think of another location that would be really interesting, and I don't know how financially it would ever play out, but, there's over 160 acres of ag land within the fairgrounds, and you think about Grand Farm, in conjunction with the fairgrounds, Big Iron, and the attraction, the number of people that would have visibility into that between those types of events. Be interesting.
Right.
I throw that out there not knowing at all how that would ever be possible to.
That proposal would have to come from the county.
County, though,
Yes.
yeah, not
Right.
county, yeah.
You mentioned that those 4 cells up there would need to have a cover crop and all that on there. Wouldn't that be similar to the cells directly to the south of that?
Yeah, we should, if everything continues to go what it is, we'll have this planted this year. Cell 10 will be planted this year. And I guess if everything continues to go what it is, we might actually have all 3 cells planted this year. We'd be quite ahead of schedule if that happens, and then it would just be to take the riprap off of those cells. But if we can get that planted and moving forward, where those would be fully decommissioned at that point.
So what is the answer, Matt? Could they be ready to go by spring 2022?
They would not.
It would not be 100, so it's kind of a moot point then.
Yeah, depending on if they're looking or could push it off, maybe a couple of years, but, this area probably, if you're just looking for 160 acres, that would be probably beneficial to them, would be here, and I would say earliest would be 24.
I mean, I guess my belief is that we could send some type of communication back that, we would be very interested, but, the timing doesn't seem appropriate, and if there's flexibility in that at all, that there potentially would be interest and we would have some creative ideas, but without flexibility in the date, I don't know how or why we would spend any more time on it outside of sending a communication.
Again, the project has a pretty high level of exposure, so it really felt like it was something we needed some direction from the commission on. And that was our really only option, was the lagoons. Anything else is something we'd have to work with private property owners on, and really that's not something we're in the position to really do right now.
Agreed.
I would agree with Commissioner Jurdevig as well.
I guess, did you get your answer, Tim, or do you want an official?
Yeah, no action means we're gonna respond and say that we don't have the community support to follow that up. We certainly continue to dialogue with them, just like we always do. Lauren has a great relationship with the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC, and if they wanna change their RFP, if they wanna.
Did you say you don't have community support? I'm not sure that.
To respond to this RFP, I don't think that we,
Okay.
without action, we probably don't have that community support that they're looking for to respond to this RFP. I mean, there's probably a better political way to say that.
Yeah, I think it's the timing. I mean, from my perspective, I would be for, I would love to have this to be a part of West Fargo. I think there's some really neat things that could come from it long-term. I just don't see a path by spring of 2022 to be able to execute on it, and therefore, we're stuck in a position where it's not that we don't have support or potential interest, it's we just don't have the ability to make it happen in their timeframe.
Right, I agree.
Mayor? I have a question.
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Tim, if you were to go back and just say they were willing to wait, my next question would be, could this farmland, could that coexist with an industrial park with the other 400 odd acres? I mean, would that be something that, or?
To me, that's the kind of research that we would want to engage in, that we haven't had really the opportunity to do yet. We'd like to understand a little bit more about, the 4 plans that you have, the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4, along with the RFP, is really all the only information that we have So, those are the types of things, we would really want to make sure that there's a good return on this for the city, that we're not taking up a large chunk of land that now we have to grow beyond somehow and run sewer and water and road past. I mean, that's inefficient development. But if there's, other things associated with it, or if we determine that, this is such a benefit to our ag community that it's worth doing, those are the types of discussions that we'd really like to get into. But without land, without really ability to do it, I just don't know if that's really worth it to get into that. So that's the kind of thing that we would love to talk about and really spend some time on. But we've not gotten that
Right.
opportunity.
Right now, I agree with Commissioner.
So I don't have your answer really. I think it could be really
Good,
great.
though. That was all I was asking,
Yeah.
yeah, but I agree, I don't think the time frame is here to move this forward.
Yeah.
Unless they're willing to, extend that.
And we'll certainly express the comments made by any commissioners tonight. I certainly see that there's interest and you think it's a great project, just potentially maybe not be the right timing, or the land, we just don't know enough about it yet, so.
Well, and we don't know if they want to irrigate or anything. We wouldn't know what kind of infrastructure and all that to put together that quickly and, all that good stuff.
Well, 160 acres is what he intended to do. It's not like it's crop research like NDSU does. This is to run autonomous vehicles basically on. I hope that, and I agree with the timeline, it's unfortunate. But make no mistake, the peripheral businesses that will pop up when this starts to happen, the engineering firms and this is a global project. This autonomous research that's being done right here in Fargo, North Dakota, is leading the world.
That's why it'd be great to have it in our community.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. When I was contacted by Emerging Prairie, I asked them to send the RFP. Obviously, then I notified staff immediately. Tim had also gotten it, and I believe maybe Megan or Lauren as well. Just we understand this is going to happen, and it's going to happen in a big way. All the major equipment manufacturers in North America and South America are already engaged.
Is there any way we can speed up the process out there, Matt, probably? Or, is there any way we can speed it up then? Is there something we can do?
I think Tim's response to them is absolutely correct with regard to the timing. And, maybe they're being aggressive. Maybe they're, there's Fargo, West Fargo, Castleton, Kindred, and Horace, I believe, were in the RFPs. Tim, am I correct?
Yes.
And obviously, some of the other communities have a lot more agricultural land surrounding them than we do for the way that we've grown. But I just think that our correspondence back to them has to be very positive, because there are going to be additional peripheral businesses that are going to develop out of this. And I would hope they would, whether it's industrial or light commercial or whatever, that they'd still continue to support our community. So that's my only intent, is that we don't burn the bridge. If we truly do not have the acreage, and we've not reached out to any of our extraterritorial type of areas that we have and looking at that, and that's not our job. I realize that, to see whether or not, some of our neighboring farmers or whatever would like to be involved in this, because it's going to require services and potentially water, as you've suggested, Commissioner Olson and the like. But just so that our correspondence keeps the door open even if it's in a very minimal way. This is not something that should be taken lightly for the potential that it's going to, I think, bring forth. So, please, you've got your consensus, I believe.
As it
Commissioner
pertains to,
George that was on is in agreement with what's been said with regard to the timeline, so.
and as it pertains to staff time, we are willing to put in whatever effort we need to put in. I think the timing issue is not necessarily that, it's the fact that we don't have property that's potentially ready. So we'll work with Greater Fargo EDC and Emerging Prairie to identify what we can and can't do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commission President and
Fisk,
Commissioners. thank-
Correspondence.
I gave you all a packet of the correspondence, but I do have one more thing. Dennis Otterness, or Chief Otterness, he has staff and himself down, I think it was in Florida, to receive an award. And I want him to explain to you what it was and how amazing it is.
Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Thank you, President Dardis and members of the commission. I just wanted to bring to your attention that I traveled down to Orlando last Monday with a couple members of our SRO team, School Resource Officer team, along with a representative from West Fargo School District, Heather Lease, to receive our Model Agency Award that was awarded to us in 2020, but because of COVID, we weren't able to hold the conference. But I just wanted to share with you a letter that was written by the Executive Director of the National Association of School Resource Officers that represents all of the school resource officer programs throughout the entire United States. So it says, "It is with great pleasure that I congratulate the West Fargo Police Department School Resource Officer Program as a recipient of the NASRO 2020 Model Agency Award. Although we had worthy nominations, many worthy nominations, your agency's program stands out as a shining example of a school resource officer program. This unit serves as a model agency throughout its application of the triad concept, which involves training, policies, and standards of school-based policing and fulfills NASRO's mission of creating safer schools, safer students, through innovative and resourceful services and strategies. It's a privilege to bestow this honor to the West Fargo Police Department." And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I think it's a testament to the phenomenal, relationship we have, not only with the community, our students, and the West Fargo School District, but it also is a representation of the support that you've had as a commission to support our SRO program throughout the years. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Chief. I know that in certain parts of the country right now that even SROs are being defunded with all of the issues that America's facing. And so for you folks to continue to lead in this area, congratulations to you and your team, to your SRO officers, to the West Fargo School District and the West Fargo School Board for continuing to serve this great project. I've been at the schools many times where I've witnessed the SRO officers. I just recently judged all the summer projects at Cheyenne High School. And the guy right beside me the whole time was the SRO officer, and they'd asked for 2 judges, they'd asked for an elected official, and they asked their SRO officers, which I believe speaks absolute volumes that these young people were having a man in uniform with a gun on his hip as part of that team. So great job. Congratulations.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Are there any non-agenda items that any of our commissioners would like to bring forward? We'll start. Commissioner George, do you have anything, being that you're the one far, far away?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner have any non-agenda items? Any department head have any non-agenda items that you'd like to bring forward this evening? Any staff have any agenda items that you'd like to bring forward this evening? With that, Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We stand adjourned.